The myth of the Hollywood heart attack. When we think of a heart attack, most of us picture the same dramatic scene, one we have seen countless times in movies and on television. A man, usually middle-aged or older, suddenly clutches his chest. His face contorts in agony, he gasps for air, and he complains of a crushing pain radiating down his left arm before collapsing. This image, the Hollywood heart attack, is so deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness that we have come to accept it as the universal truth of what a heart attack looks like. But this picture is dangerously incomplete. It is a story told from only one perspective, based on decades of medical research that focused almost exclusively on men. For millions of women, the reality of a heart attack is not a sudden dramatic explosion of pain. It is often a much quieter, more confusing, and more insidious event. The signs can be subtle, vague, and easy to dismiss as something else entirely, like the flu, stress, or simple exhaustion. This dangerous gap between perception and reality is why heart disease remains the #1 killer of women, claiming more lives than all forms of cancer combined. Women often delay seeking help because their symptoms do not match the classic male-centric model they have been taught to expect. They doubt themselves, they push through the discomfort, and they tell themselves they are just tired or stressed. This article is about shining a bright light on the most common and most commonly ignored of these symptoms. It is not always a sharp pain that signals a heart in crisis. For a vast number of women, the most significant and most urgent alarm bell is a silent one, a profound and overwhelming fatigue. Understanding this symptom, learning to distinguish it from everyday tiredness, and recognizing its connection to the heart is one of the most critical steps a woman can take to protect her health and save her own life. Unmasking the silent symptom. Profound fatigue. The word fatigue is an inadequate descriptor for the physical state that can signal a heart attack. This is not the familiar tiredness you feel after a poor night's sleep or at the end of a long, stressful week. This is a different category of exhaustion altogether. It is a profound, debilitating, and bone-deep weariness that can descend suddenly, without any logical explanation. Women who have experienced it describe it in powerful terms. They say it feels as though a switch has been flipped and all their energy has been drained away. Some compare it to having a severe case of the flu, but without the fever, aches, or cough. It is an exhaustion so complete that even the simplest activities, like walking to the kitchen or lifting a handbag, can feel like climbing a mountain. A woman might find herself needing to sit down and rest after doing something as mundane as making her bed. She might feel completely wiped out for days leading up to the event, a level of fatigue that is entirely out of character for her. The immense danger of this symptom lies in how easily it is dismissed. In our modern world, being tired is a normalized state of being, especially for women. Many women over 50 are juggling the demands of a career, managing a household, caring for aging parents, and supporting their children and grandchildren. They are conditioned to be caregivers, to put the needs of others before their own, and to push through their own discomfort. When this unusual exhaustion appears, the immediate instinct is not to think heart attack, but to think I am overdoing it, I am stressed, or I must be coming down with something. To protect yourself, you must learn to distinguish this unique cardiac fatigue from everyday tiredness. There are several key differences. First is the onset. Normal tiredness usually builds gradually over the course of a day or a week. Cardiac fatigue often comes on suddenly and unexpectedly. Second is the relationship to rest. A good night's sleep or a restful weekend will usually alleviate normal fatigue. Cardiac fatigue is not relieved by rest. You can sleep for 8 or 10 hours and still wake up feeling utterly drained. Finally, and most importantly, is the disconnect from exertion. You expect to be tired after a strenuous workout or a demanding project at work. Cardiac fatigue is a level of exhaustion that is completely disproportionate to the activity you have performed. It is this out-of-character, unexplained, and persistent exhaustion that should be treated as a serious warning sign. The science behind the exhaustion, why a heart in distress makes you tired. To understand why a heart in crisis causes such profound fatigue, it helps to think of your heart as the powerful engine of your body. Its primary job is to pump oxygen-rich blood to every single cell, tissue, and organ, providing the fuel they need to function. A heart attack occurs when the flow of blood to a part of the heart muscle itself is blocked, usually by a clot that has formed on a ruptured plaque in a coronary artery. When this blockage happens, that section of the heart muscle begins to be starved of oxygen and starts to die. This creates a critical emergency. The heart, now damaged and weakened, cannot pump blood as efficiently as it once did. The total amount of blood it can push out with each beat, known as cardiac output, decreases significantly. This drop in pumping efficiency triggers a cascade of consequences throughout your body that directly result in the feeling of overwhelming fatigue. First, with less blood being circulated, Your major muscles in your arms, legs, and back receive less oxygen. Oxygen is the essential ingredient your muscles need to create energy. When they are deprived of it, they cannot function properly, leading to that profound sense of weakness and heaviness. Second, your body is incredibly intelligent and goes into a state of emergency triage. It begins to divert the limited blood flow away from less critical areas, like your limbs and digestive system, and prioritizes sending it to the two most vital organs, the brain and the heart itself. This shunting of blood is a survival mechanism, but it further robs your other muscles of the oxygen they need, amplifying the feeling of exhaustion. Finally, the heart muscle itself has to work incredibly hard to try to compensate for its weakened state. The remaining healthy parts of the heart beat faster and harder to try to maintain blood flow to the body. This immense effort consumes a massive amount of energy, leaving you feeling completely drained, much like an engine that is running inefficiently and burning through its fuel at an alarming rate. The profound fatigue, therefore, is not all in your head. It is a direct, physical manifestation of a body-wide energy crisis triggered by a heart that is failing at its most fundamental job, the company it keeps. Other atypical symptoms. While profound fatigue can be the most prominent and earliest warning sign of a heart attack in women, it rarely travels alone. It is often the lead singer in a chorus of other subtle, atypical symptoms. Learning to recognize this symptom cluster is crucial, as the combination of these signs can provide a clearer picture that something is seriously wrong. The fatigue might be the main signal, but these other symptoms are the supporting cast that confirms it is a cardiac emergency. Think of the fatigue as the central clue in a mystery, and these other symptoms as the accomplices that help you solve the case. Shortness of breath. This is an extremely common companion to fatigue. It can feel like you have just run up a flight of stairs, even when you have only walked across a room. This happens because the weakened heart is struggling to pump blood forward to the body. This inefficiency can cause a traffic jam of blood in the vessels that lead from the lungs back to the heart. As pressure builds up in this traffic jam, fluid can begin to leak from the tiny blood vessels into the air sacs of the lungs. This condition, called pulmonary edema, makes it physically harder for you to breathe and for oxygen to get into your bloodstream, causing that distinct sensation of being winded or unable to take a full, satisfying breath. Pain in unexpected places. The pain of a woman's heart attack often defies the classic chest-centric model. This is due to a phenomenon called referred pain, which is like a case of crossed wires in your body's nervous system. The nerves from your heart, jaw, neck, back, and arms all send their signals to the brain through the same general area of the spinal cord. During a heart attack, the brain receives intense distress signals from the heart but can get confused about their exact origin. It may misinterpret these signals as coming from the back, neck, or jaw. This is why a woman may feel a sharp stabbing pain between her shoulder blades, a dull ache that wraps around her neck like a tight scarf, or a pain in her jaw so intense it can be mistaken for a severe toothache. The discomfort can also be felt in one or both arms, but instead of the classic crushing pain, it may present as a dull heavy ache or a strange tingling sensation. Stomach and digestive issues. The nerves that supply the heart and the upper digestive system are located very close to each other and are part of the same large nerve network, particularly the vagus nerve. Think of this nerve as a party line for your internal organs. When the heart sends out an urgent distress signal, the stomach and esophagus can overhear it. This is why many women experience symptoms that feel entirely gastrointestinal. They might feel a sudden wave of nausea, a feeling of severe indigestion or heartburn that is not relieved by antacids, or even experience vomiting. Because these symptoms are so common in everyday life, they are among the easiest to dismiss, but in the context of a new and unusual fatigue, they become highly suspicious. Sudden sweating and dizziness. During a heart attack, the body's nervous system goes into a fight-or-flight stress response, releasing a surge of adrenaline. This is the body's attempt to force the heart to beat harder and faster to compensate for the blockage. This adrenaline surge is what can trigger a sudden, unexplained cold sweat, even if you are not feeling hot. It is a clammy, uncomfortable sweat that feels very different from the heat of a hot flash. At the same time, the reduced blood flow from the struggling heart means the brain may not be getting all the oxygen it needs. This oxygen deprivation is what leads to feelings of dizziness, lightheadedness, or a sense of being about to faint. When a woman experiences a sudden debilitating fatigue accompanied by one or more of these other symptoms, it should be treated as a medical emergency. It is the combination of these seemingly unrelated signs that paints the true picture of a woman's heart attack. Why women? The postmenopausal shift. The reason women's heart attack symptoms are often so different and why their risk escalates so dramatically after the age of 50 can be traced back to one key biological event, menopause. This transition is not just an end to fertility, it is a fundamental rewiring of a woman's entire cardiovascular and metabolic system. For most of a woman's adult life, her ovaries produce the hormone estrogen, which acts as a powerful, natural guardian of her cardiovascular system. Think of estrogen as the master gardener of your arteries. It keeps the inner walls of the blood vessels, called the endothelium, smooth and healthy.
It promotes the production of a substance called nitric oxide, which is a potent vasodilator, meaning it tells the arteries to relax and widen, allowing blood to flow freely. This keeps blood pressure in check and prevents the artery walls from becoming stiff. Estrogen also acts as a natural anti-inflammatory, tamping down the chronic inflammation that is the root cause of plaque buildup. Finally, it helps maintain a healthy cholesterol profile, keeping the bad low-density lipoprotein cholesterol low and the good high-density lipoprotein cholesterol high. Menopause marks the retirement of this master gardener. As estrogen levels plummet, this lifelong shield is removed and the garden is left untended. The consequences are profound and multifaceted. Without estrogen's relaxing influence, the arteries tend to become stiffer and less flexible, making it easier for blood pressure to rise. The cholesterol profile often changes for the worse, with bad cholesterol and triglycerides increasing while good cholesterol may fall. The body also becomes more prone to the kind of low-grade chronic inflammation that is the seed of atherosclerotic plaque. This fundamental biological shift creates the perfect environment for heart disease to develop, often silently and without obvious symptoms for years. Importantly, the architecture of heart disease itself can be different in postmenopausal women. While men often develop distinct, hard, calcified blockages in their main coronary arteries, women are more prone to two other forms of disease. First, they may develop softer, less stable plaques that are more evenly spread throughout the artery, a condition that can be harder to detect with some standard tests. Second, and critically, women are more prone to a condition called coronary microvascular disease. In this condition, the large main arteries, the highways of the heart, may be perfectly clear on an angiogram. The problem lies in the vast network of tiny blood vessels, the side streets and capillaries that deliver blood deep within the heart muscle. After menopause, these small vessels can become damaged and dysfunctional. They lose their ability to dilate properly when the heart needs more blood, such as during exercise or stress. This creates a supply and demand crisis, starving the heart muscle of oxygen and causing very real cardiac symptoms, including fatigue and chest pain. Yet because the main arteries look fine, women with this condition are often told that their heart is fine and their symptoms are not real. It is this postmenopausal vulnerability to these different patterns of disease that makes it so critical for women in this age group to be hypervigilant about subtle symptoms like fatigue. From dismissal to diagnosis, becoming your own best advocate. The long history of medical bias has created a healthcare environment where women's symptoms are, even today, more likely to be dismissed or misdiagnosed. This means that to protect your heart, you must be prepared to be your own strongest and most effective advocate. If you experience a sudden onset of profound fatigue, especially if it is accompanied by any of the other atypical symptoms, you must take immediate and decisive action. Do not downplay your symptoms. Your first instinct may be to minimize what you are feeling, to wait and see if it goes away, or to avoid making a fuss. You must fight this instinct. When it comes to your heart, the consequences of waiting are far too high. It is always better to seek medical help and be told it is nothing than to stay home and risk irreversible damage to your heart muscle. Call for emergency help. Do not attempt to drive yourself to the hospital. Call your local emergency number immediately. Emergency medical personnel can begin life-saving treatment on the way to the hospital, which can be critical in preserving heart muscle. Use specific and urgent language. When you speak to the emergency dispatcher and to the medical team, be clear and firm. Do not just say, "I feel tired." Instead, use descriptive and urgent language. Say, "I am experiencing a sudden and severe exhaustion that is not normal for me, and I am also feeling short of breath and have pain between my shoulder blades. I am concerned I am having a heart attack." Using the words heart attack ensures that your complaint is taken seriously from the outset. Insist on a thorough evaluation. In the emergency room, insist on a full cardiac workup. At a minimum, this should include an electrocardiogram to measure the heart's electrical activity and a blood test to check for cardiac troponin levels. Troponin is a protein that is released into the bloodstream when the heart muscle is damaged, and it is the definitive marker of a heart attack. If these initial tests are inconclusive but you are still having symptoms, you should be monitored and may require further testing. Never leave a medical setting feeling unheard. If you feel that your concerns are being dismissed or that you are not being taken seriously, do not be afraid to speak up. Ask to see another doctor. Ask for a cardiology consultation. Trust your intuition. You know your body better than anyone. If you feel that something is profoundly wrong, you are probably right. Conclusion: trusting your body's wisdom. The landscape of women's heart health is changing, but that change is happening slowly. For now, the most important guardian of your heart is you. The greatest tool you possess is your deep intuitive knowledge of your own body, and your ability to recognize when something feels fundamentally different. The story of the female heart attack is not always a loud, dramatic tale of crushing pain. More often, it is a quiet, whispered warning. It is the sudden, inexplicable wave of exhaustion that makes you feel like your internal power cord has been unplugged. It is the shortness of breath you feel while doing a simple chore. It is the nagging ache in your back or jaw that you cannot explain. Learning to listen to these whispers is not an act of anxiety. It is an act of profound self-care and empowerment. It is about unlearning the old incomplete stories we have been told about heart disease, and embracing a new awareness that is centered on the unique female experience. Trust the wisdom of your body. When it sends you a signal, especially one as powerful and unusual as profound fatigue, listen to it. By doing so, you can become the hero of your own heart health story, and ensure that your story continues for a long, healthy, and vibrant life.